everyone, and welcome to Walsh School. I haven't seen this many Board of Ed commissioners at a daytime meeting in a long time. Welcome.
You missing us?
Yeah.
Took him a second to say yeah.
Yeah, of course I am. I just went over the budget. That's why I was a little nervous. Anyways, it's great to be here, and of course, with our governor and lieutenant governor. Senator Blumenthal is here. Commissioner Gilman is here. We've got quite a crew with, of course, our superintendent, Dr. Ruffin, our deputy superintendent. I think I saw Darren somewhere. And we're here for good reason, right? We're in one of our most challenged schools, right, in the city of Waterbury. We all recognize and understand that. In one of our most challenged neighborhoods. And we hold it together here because of the great staff and the teachers. And it is a family school. And what I love about this school the most is the families look out for one another and support one another. And you know, that's really the fabric of Waterbury, especially in some of our areas that need the support. Today, there's quite a bit of support coming our way. Through the governor's leadership, the great people of the state of Connecticut and the legislature, of course. We are here to tell about some great news regarding money that will be available to upgrade in many places like schools like this in Waterbury, put in new HVAC systems, providing quality of air and health. All of this, of course, we've learned through the pandemic that this is areas that we need to focus on the most. Waterbury will have 8 schools that qualify for this funding. And Governor and Waterbury, we're our grammar schools. This one is not quite 100 years old. But we do have grammar schools more than 100 years old that will be part of the 8-school program. So we're delighted to have everyone here today. This is a very, very great day for Waterbury. Even though the sun is not shining, I like to say the sun is shining on Waterbury today with all these great folks here. So welcome to everyone, and I now turn it over to our Department of Administrative Services, otherwise known as DAS, Commissioner Michelle Gilman. Michelle? Thank you.
Don't mind us, we're just coming.
Good afternoon, everybody. So good to see everybody here in Waterbury. Thank you so much for hosting us here today, and to the mayor as well for his leadership. I was reflecting to him in advance of our start today how incredible it was, an opportunity to work with him and his staff throughout the COVID pandemic as we were setting up emergency testing sites, then vaccination sites, and then certainly looking at the entire pandemic response and how Waterbury was really a model for other communities across the state in that response. So I want to thank him for his leadership throughout that time. And now we're here, again, to celebrate a milestone that came out of the pandemic and really something that has been in conversation for decades. And now we're here to release, needed funding for HVAC programs and projects across the state, including in Waterbury. So again, it's a week of great pride for our state. We actually, of course, had our Huskies victory, which we're all still excited to look at and celebrate. And then yesterday, an important acknowledgement that it was National Healthy Schools Day. And through an informational forum at the Capitol and through conversations across the country, lots of conversation around what we can do in our schools for our school staff, for our students, for our families, around air quality, and to make our schools safer and a better learning environment for all. So I thought it was fitting that we're actually launching this program and the grant awards today in light of that milestone yesterday as well. And I really think every day should be National Healthy Schools Day, yes. And I think we do celebrate that, but important to recognize those milestones. So here today, we're proud under DAS to launch this first round of grants for this critical program that will improve indoor air quality in schools and support our students, staff, and families. Again, coming out of the COVID pandemic, looking at health disparities across not only our state and in our communities, but across the country, we anticipate that this program will help to make a difference in closing the disparities that continue to exist. This program also has the potential to really help increase sustainability and environmental change in our communities as we install new systems and new air quality systems. So the work that DAS does on climate sustainability initiatives throughout the state, we take now a sense of pride that we're contributing to our school systems as well through these grant programs. Really, this grant program is not only embedded within DAS, but it's a testament to our legislative partners, agency colleagues, union and municipal leadership, and other advocates to ensure that our schools are equipped with modernized ventilation systems to promote healthy air quality. The $56 million in grants that we're releasing today represents the first round of funding released through this program set forth through legislation. Waterbury is receiving $16 million for 8 schools, as the mayor noted.
Wow.
16 million today. So the initial application period opened on September 14th of last year. School districts were notified to submit the applications to the state by December 1st. And we do expect to have additional rounds of applications and funding starting likely on August 1st with awards later in the year and through early 2024. I do want to acknowledge before opening up the program to our school district team and other dignitaries here today, including the governor, Lieutenant Governor, Senator Blumenthal, that this project could not have taken off without the leadership of so many, including our union partners, our boards of education members, many of whom are here today, COST, CABE, CCM, the Superintendent's Association, so many advocates across the state. So really want to thank all of those members that are here today and part of this project. I also want to acknowledge that we had an indoor air quality task force through Senator Kushner and Representative Leeper's advocacy, and that was composed of advocates around the state that really pushed for not only this program, but for other measures that are continuing to be discussed in the legislature for action when it comes to monitoring health quality in our schools. So we really continue to be a part of that process and really look forward to continued engagement on that. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Superintendent Verna Ruffin and to really acknowledge all the work that she and her team have done to get us here today. So Superintendent.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Gilman. It's a pleasure to have all of you here today. And again, a special thanks to our governor and to all our invited guests who are here and in celebration of this wonderful award that we will be receiving and that we will acknowledge very shortly. To also thank all of the commissioners who are here today, our board chair, Ann Sweeney, Commissioner Arso, Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Arlen, Commissioner Nardozzi, Commissioner Van Stone, and to thank all of the members of the board and our respected, the Honorable Mayor Neil O'Leary for all of the support as we continue to work on behalf of all of our schools here in Waterbury. We're especially pleased, Governor, that when this became available to us, that the application process began for Waterbury Public Schools, which enabled us to put in an application for the following schools: Bunker Hill, Driggs, Hopeville, Kingsbury, Sprague, Tinker, Walsh, and Wilson. Prior to that, the only hope that we had to be able to continue to improve air quality was through some of the availability of the ESSER funds, which would have provided some of the ventilation for Bucks Hill, Generali, Chase, the International Dual Language School, Washington, and Reagan. With this award and with what you will be sharing with us, this will allow us to be able to fully address the air quality in Waterbury Public Schools for all of our schools that are in need of air quality considerations. And we are very much indebted. We are very pleased that not only did the Board of Ed vote to move forward with this grant, but we received the support of the Board of Aldermen as we move forward, and we were able to transfer any of the funds that we suspected we might have needed should this come through in order to provide a matching fund. We are very, very pleased that 14 schools will have an upgraded ventilation and cooling system in Waterbury as a result of your generous consideration, and we thank all of you here this morning to be able to make take that award to Waterbury Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. Next, I'd like to introduce our principal of Walsh, Jessica Ocasio. Jessica, thank you so much again for hosting us and for all of your leadership here at the school. It was a pleasure to see our little ones coming in or leaving as we were coming in, and a reminder of really why we're here today. So, Principal Ocasio.
Thank you, Mrs. Gilman and Dr. Ruffin. As principal, it gives me great pleasure to have all of you here at Walsh Elementary School. Our school is child-centered, and the work and effort that administrators, educators, and staff revolve around all of our students' best interests, but most importantly, looking for their academic, social-emotional success. The Connecticut Public Schools HVAC Indoor Air Quality Grant Program will not only positively impact the students here at Walsh, but the students in Waterbury and in our states. The improved air filtration systems, provide benefits from reducing airborne illnesses to improving the overall well-being of our students and staff. I would like to thank Governor Lamont, Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysiewicz, Senator Blumenthal, Commissioner of the Connecticut State Department of Administrative Services, Michelle Gillum, Commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Public Health, Dr. Manisha Jathani, President of the Connecticut Education Association, Kate Diaz, Joan Amato of the American Federation of Teachers, Mayor O'Leary, Superintendent Ruffin, and the many state and local leaders that are here with us today. Your support and your leadership has provided our students, staffs, and families with improved infrastructure that is critical not only for the safety, but the healthiness of our learning environments. So on behalf of Walsh Elementary School and all my little friends here, we thank you again so much for your leadership and your support in our schools. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you, Principal Ocasio. And now it's my pleasure to welcome up Kate Diaz, the president of the CEA, and Joan Amato, who is a West Haven teacher and a member of the AFT. Again, two wonderful partners and two wonderful partner organizations, not only for this program, but again, for indoor air quality across our state, and then so many other issues relative to the education and safety of our schools, our students, and our professional staff and others working in our school system. So really pleased to be able to have them both here today representing their impactful organizations. Thank you.
Oh, you said watch it, and I hit it.
Sorry.
Well, I'd like to say thank you so much. It's kind of interesting to come back to a classroom at a school, and we're not talking about COVID, because that's the last time I saw Commissioner Jathani. So yay, us. But I think we are talking about something that's profoundly important. I had the opportunity to go to the forum yesterday, and it was a stark reminder of how recently this issue was kind of catapulted into our laps and why. You know, we think back about the trajectory of our conversation about indoor air quality and how we were brought to this. It was through illnesses of teachers, illnesses of children, and through the absolute persistence of educational leaders, parents, and students themselves that in 2003 said, you have to address this. You can't afford to continue to ignore our health and well-being. And interestingly enough, that the moment that was kind of distinguished about today and where we are isn't that we've kind of made huge gains. It was the fact that for the first time out of the governor's office was the acknowledgement that this is a significant public health issue. That's an important note. And it was sort of a pivotal development because it meant we weren't talking about this as what is the principal going to do to fix this? What is the superintendent on their own going to do to fix this? What is the town and municipality governments doing on their own? It was the recognition that this had a huge reach, that this was something that was so significant that it was a matter of public health and could no longer be ignored. And that's what drew the resources, initially starting us off with $150 million, which doesn't it sound like a lot of money? I mean, it sounds like a lot of money, right? We should be like, woo! And we were very celebratory, but it really just scratched the surface and started the conversation of what are we going to do, how are we going to get it done, and what do we need to make it happen. And so the additional investment this year tells us we're going to continue to take not just baby steps, but big leaps into what our schools should be, which is really healthy environments for kids to learn and teachers to work. Because if we take care of those spaces, we allow the adults to thrive, we allow the children to thrive, we cut down on absences. There's so many ways that this really truly impacts the day-to-day survival of our schools and the appeal to bring that workforce in. An investment of this kind says education matters. The work that goes on in these schools matter, and we're going to invest and we're going to care because what goes on and the air we breathe needs to be high quality so that we are assured healthy environments. Something I think we all understand is really an entry point into successful public education. So we are really proud. I thank our partners. I thank my staff, Lou Rosato Burge, woo, for all their hard work. The task force has done tremendous things this year. I look forward to continuing to advocate hard for those standards that I want to see in statute, because we can do it, people. We can have healthy standards that are at least as good as a pet store. Come on, folks, we can do it. So I believe in our power as a community to do the right thing, and I thank you for the opportunity to celebrate this. And I'm going to hand it over to Joan.
Thank you, Kate. Bear with me, I am not used to this as much as Kate is. My name is Joni Amato. I have been teaching at West Haven High School for the past 12 years. I also was appointed to represent Connecticut AFT, to be on the working group that you have heard about, which is an incredible experience on so many levels. I have learned so much from so many people. The committee is led by Senator Kushner and Representative Leeper. It is comprised of a number of different professionals from various backgrounds, stakeholders, everybody that could have something to contribute to indoor air quality. We know that school environments should be clean, they should be safe. Our children are required lawfully to attend school, and we should be required to make those schools clean and temperate. So we know that, forgive me. One of the scariest aspects of poor air quality is that you cannot see it. 20 years ago, when Connecticut first started implementing laws for indoor air quality, most of the public was not aware of the real dangers and the real effects that could come from these dangers in our schools. With the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of that has been brought to the attention of the public, and people are more aware. However, I still don't think that people are truly aware of how important this issue is and the devastating effects that it could have on our children and our teachers. We know children are uniquely susceptible to these risks. Their small bodies, their rapidly growing systems, their brains, all of these things make them more susceptible to these risks. They breathe at a faster rate than adults. They are more active than adults. So essentially, they are breathing in more toxins than the adults standing next to them. The very real short and long-term effects of these things we are seeing through sick building syndrome and building-related illnesses. I attended National Healthy Schools Days, which you heard a little bit about from some people. It was an incredible opportunity, and I learned so much. One of the first speakers was Joellen Lawson, which if you are not familiar with Joellen Lawson, she is absolutely amazing. She spoke about some of the specific cases for children and staff who have suffered from poor air quality in schools. When I tell you that it was heartbreaking to hear these stories and see the pictures and just see the actual effects, was absolutely devastating. But beyond that, what was far more devastating was to know that the majority of these could have been prevented. Could have been prevented from something as simple as proper routine maintenance, or changing filters, or just providing some sort of airflow system. If you are not familiar with the story of McKinley School in Fairfield, I encourage you to do a little bit of research. Back in 2000, the school was permanently closed because of the amount of people that became sick. Kate briefly mentioned there were about 50 people that became ill from that school, 2 of which were children that were hospitalized from severe asthma attacks. Joellen Lawson was a teacher at that school, and I say was because after she had to leave from the devastating effects, she could never return to her job again. Her life was never the same after the effects that she suffered from McKinley School and the mold that built up in there. She had to leave the profession because of the building-related illness. There were high levels of mycotoxins from the mold that was linked directly with these student illnesses. Joellen today lives with 50% of her lung function, dizzy spells, and vision loss, just to name a few. Her life has never been the same. All of this due from a lack of proper maintenance with the ventilation. Physical and psychological effects we know of. As Kate mentioned, there are far more effects than just the physical. We know it's affecting academic achievement, and while it's not necessarily as important, it's also affecting the finances. The EPA has linked key environmental factors to health outcomes and student ability to perform. We know that improvements in school environment can enhance student performance and productivity and retention for both teachers and staff. Just to give you some examples, right now we know that about 10.5 million school days are lost every year due to asthma, which is the leading cause of absenteeism in our country. In Connecticut, we are above the average for asthma. Our Connecticut children's rate of asthma is about 3 in 20. So just to put things into perspective, beyond that, the financial aspect, we know that the cost of remediation often outweighs the cost of regular routine maintenance. Beyond that, a study from Harvard predicted that districts could offset $25,000 per classroom per year in the future for lost earnings because of lower academic achievement. That's predicted to change from climate change. As climate change worsens, communities are going to face even greater harms, and our children are going to be particularly vulnerable during these extreme heat. We have higher levels of pollution, higher levels of asthma, and we know that this can lead to trauma, shock, stress, anxiety, and depression. Our students and our staff deserve protection from these risks. The National Healthy Schools Network identifies 3 key components to an effective IAQ plan: establishing indoor air quality standards, enacting oversight, and providing sustained long-term funding sources to assist municipalities with school infrastructure improvements, including repairing HVAC systems and/or installing air conditioning. This funding is so critical to schools for us to actually provide this. The sustained funding will not only provide the implementation and installation of these things, but it will provide the training that is needed and the ongoing maintenance that we need as well. So I thank you.
Kate and Joni, thank you so much again for your remarks, and again for really providing some real context about the challenges of our workforce and our students in schools that need these programs. And again, the governor's commitment to these cannot be taken lightly. So I don't want to get ahead of the program, but again, thank you so much. So next, my pleasure to invite my colleague, Commissioner Manisha Jutani, up to the podium. I just want to acknowledge that the Commissioner is just an incredible partner, not only to DAS, but to all of our agencies across the state. I was often, I think during the pandemic, Dr. Carter at the time called me an informal epidemiologist, which I thought was the highest mark of recognition that I could have. But Commissioner Jutani is really the doctor in the room, and we are grateful for her leadership with the pandemic, and then certainly post-pandemic, working through issues such as air quality, water safety, and so many other issues that DPH is working through. So, Commissioner, my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Gilman, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with all of you today. When I hear from Kate and Joan talking about the public health crisis and the public health importance of air quality, I feel like my job is done. I mean, you just really laid out why this intervention is so important. Children breathe air in schools all day long. This is their home away from home. It is our responsibility as a society to take care of them, to make sure that they have the best learning environment, and it is our responsibility to make sure educators are equally taken care of who are providing this function for our children. I think 5 years ago, much of the lay public would not have fully understood the importance of air quality. And if there's any upside to the COVID-19 pandemic, is I think it did highlight something that educators and parents already knew about from instances that had been happening over the last many decades. And I want to thank the governor for your leadership on this issue, because it has highlighted why this is the moment, this is our opportunity to right a wrong. As Joan mentioned, Connecticut, when we talk about asthma rates, is higher than the national average. We should not be there. Our job in public health is to identify the trends and patterns that are happening in our state and help identify ways that we can educate people and things that we can do to prevent worsening episodes of emergency room visits, of illness on site. When I heard about one of our school-based health centers right here in Waterbury that is providing asthma treatments to children in the school, that's the kind of intervention we need to make sure that those children are not ending up in emergency departments. We're going to be building on that work with school-based health centers as well, with more funding that the state has provided under the governor's leadership to be able to do more of that throughout our state. But this intervention on HVAC is so important for so many things, certainly viral diseases, as we've heard about, but asthma rates. You know, even if we think about Waterbury, right here in Waterbury, if we look at the top cities that have asthma rates in Connecticut, Waterbury is right up there for children and for adults. So this investment in so many buildings throughout this city is going to go a long way. And the ramifications of that, whether it be for safe learning in the building, whether it be for growth and development that's happening when you're in the building, whether it be on emergency department visits or other healthcare visits, downstream effects will be endless. So I'm so happy to hear about this investment that we've done as a state, and so happy that so much is going to be invested right here in Waterbury. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to acknowledge a few folks in the room. We do have Senator Eric Berthel here joining us from the legislature. I know the House is in session today, so I know our House colleagues and then many of our Senate colleagues who were not able to be here today are certainly in support of this program and have been, right at the heart of this moving forward. But want to acknowledge the Senator for being with us today, and thank you. Also, Fran Rabinowitz, Dr. Rabinowitz from the Connecticut Association of Superintendents. So thank you again as well for being with us today. And I do want to acknowledge my staff who has really been an incredible support to getting us here, not only through the grant application process, but working with school districts as we rolled this out really as a pilot program initially, and now moving forward, the funding and the application process will take us for several years to come. So Darren Hobbs, who's our Deputy Commissioner with Real Estate and Construction Services, and then so many other staff folks behind the scenes that have really helped to support this program. So thank you very much to all of those who have helped along the way here. So I do want to acknowledge as well and have Congresswoman Johanna Hayes, who has joined us from Washington and hopefully on spring break to come up and say a few words as well. Congresswoman. Thank you.
Not from Washington and not on spring break. From right here. But so excited to be here and excited that this is taking place and we're addressing things like air quality. I have to tell you, if you go back and look at C-SPAN, this is exactly the type of conversation I was having when we were arguing for American Rescue Plan Act funds and education dollars as set aside. I had to explain to many of my colleagues that every school is not the same. And many of your solutions for social distancing, for ventilation, those things are not possible at many of the schools in my district and many of the places that our children go to learn. So it is very important that we begin to address these things. Through the American Rescue Plan Act funds, Connecticut got almost $1.1 billion to address issues with education. The problem is, for many districts, like Waterbury, New Haven, Hartford, all of our big districts, it just put them back at zero. So while it seems like these are large amounts of money, decades of disinvestment and underinvestment has made our school system so far behind that while this American Rescue Plan Act funds were necessary and important and critical, for so many districts, it did not put them ahead. So it's great to see that Governor Lamont, the administration, Department of Public Health is saying, what else can we do to assist with our school districts? Because this is so important. And just on a point of personal privilege, I have a Waterbury story for everything, but my grandmother worked right in this building. 25 years as a classroom aide between Walsh School and Driggs School. And I can tell you I spent many summers in this basement right down the hall in Miss Kerpelman's class, after school, before school. And my grandmother was hospitalized many times and ultimately died of lung cancer. She never smoked. She never had any issues. She only came to work and went home and went to church. And while I'm not saying that, I mean, we always talked about it as a family, you know, what could it have been, what are the problems? I can tell you that so many people that live in these cities, that are in these buildings that are decades old, have lived through generations of asbestos, of poor air quality, of patchwork repairs and updates and renovations, and it is time to address these things. Our children deserve better. I remember years ago reading a Waterbury Observer story that talked about the absentee rates and the asthma rates right here in the city of Waterbury, and I was shocked by it to find that that was the #1 cause of absences for our students, asthma-related hospitalization. And it is something that we as the adults, as the legislators, as the lawmakers, have the ability to address. So thank you, Governor Lamont, for making the decision to say we are going to set aside additional funds to do this, and for choosing the schools that need it most, because it is often the community schools like Walsh that are the lifeblood of this community, where, I mean, you drive around this area, you have grandparents, parents, and children who have all gone through Walsh School, graduated from the school. They want to be here. So it is up to us to make this a safe place for them to be, and at the very least, ensure that they can take a deep breath safely. So thank you so much.
Our next speaker often needs no introduction, but it's my honor to do so. Senator Richard Blumenthal is also joining us today. I do want to mention that I learned something new yesterday watching the informational session on healthy schools, that he has been noted as an IAQ hero. And so I did want to acknowledge that, and again, welcome Senator Blumenthal, an indoor air quality hero, as designated by the Healthy Schools Coalition. Senator.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you so much, Michelle, and thanks for your decades of service to the state of Connecticut. Thank you, Commissioner. I've been with you so often. And to all the educators who are here, all the teachers, to the CEA and the AFT, to everyone involved in education in Connecticut, thank you. Thank you for doing such great work with our kids, but also being their voice and their advocates. We should be very proud of you. And I want to say a word about Mayor O'Leary. There is a very dark, ugly rumor going around that he is not seeking re-election. It's public, so I'm not disclosing anything. But this guy has been an advocate for kids from the very start of his career. You know, he began as a cop on the beat. He rose to chief. I'm not sure he always thinks of it as rising, but he became chief and then mayor. And I've watched him on the streets, in the police athletic league, in the schools. Nobody cares more about kids than Mayor Neil O'Leary. Thank you, Mayor, for all your great work. You know, there's a saying in Washington at about this time in a press conference that everything has been said, but not everyone has said it. I think a lot has been said, and I will try not to duplicate it. But first of all, to my colleague, Johanna Hayes, thank you for your work on education in Washington. She's a champion for kids in Washington, and she's been a little bit modest, and I'm going to make the point, $150 million going to HVAC systems in schools around the state of Connecticut. $75 million, half of it, is federal money, American Rescue Plan money. And there is more. We're not done. In the Inflation Reduction Act, there is more money specifically for air quality in schools because of advocates like Congresswoman Hayes. So a big thank you to you. But this $75 million in ARPA money is going to improve air quality in our schools because of a decision made by Governor Lamont. A lot of this money is highly discretionary. That's a nice way of putting, he can do with it whatever he wants. That's the power of being governor. And the reason why we allocated this money with a lot of discretion to the governors is they are close to the problems that are most serious in their states. And we trusted governors to make the right decision, and Governor Lamont has made absolutely the right decision with this money. Thank you to him and his leadership. And as you can tell, he knows the importance of the most important decisions any executives make are to surround himself with really good people, which he has done in the commissioners who are here today. So why does Congress think it's so important to have good air quality in our schools? First of all, COVID crystallized American consciousness about keeping our kids safe. Schools ought to be safe places. If nothing else is safe, schools should be safe. They should be safe from gun violence. Yes. They should be safe from hunger. They should be safe from bad air. Yes. Bad air in our schools not only costs money, it costs lives. And it began way before COVID. Mold, asbestos, lead, all of it in bad air. Kids are more vulnerable, not only because their lungs are smaller, they run around a lot, so they breathe more quickly, but also their lungs are still growing, like their brains. And so they are vulnerable to bad air more than anyone. And this money makes a very powerful statement that we are caring for our kids and trying to make our schools really safe places. Now, let me talk to the taxpayers who are saying to themselves probably, I don't think this kind of spending is all that effective. What do we get for it? Well, making bad air into safe air means filtration and ventilation. But it's not your grandfather's HVAC system. We're not talking here about heating and cooling. We're talking about getting the dust, the particles, that carry the viruses out of the air. We're talking about making the air move so that it's not stagnant and kids aren't breathing in other kids' breath. This is basic kind of common sense. It's not science, although there's a lot of science that goes into these systems. You can understand it without being a Nobel Prize winner. So I'm very proud to stand here today. The impetus for this work was COVID, but the importance goes way beyond it. We are investing in the future of our kids, making schools safe for them, and we have an obligation to make it safe from gun violence and hunger as well, but that's a topic for another day. And I want to thank the school board members who are here today, because I don't think there's a tougher job in politics than being on a school board. Maybe governor is comparable, but you guys don't get to go to watch the final championship games where the Huskies are playing. And finally, thanks, Governor, for bringing back a championship.
That's great. Nice job.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate your remarks and your humor, as always. So someone that did actually have to stay here and while the governor was representing us in Houston was the Lieutenant Governor, and we're so delighted that she is here with us today. Certainly a longtime advocate for our schools, for our children, for our staff, working in schools and our families throughout the legislature, and then certainly now as Lieutenant Governor. So delighted to acknowledge and welcome Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysowitz.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. And when the governor is seated, that's always a reminder to be brief. So I will just say good afternoon to everyone, and it's always a great day as someone who's the product of public education to be able to go to a public school and be with our teachers and our educators. And it took a village really to get us to this day. It took our local leaders. Mayor, thank you so much for your leadership. It took our legislators, Senator Berthel, thank you so much. It took our administration, our labor leaders, all of us, our federal delegation that brings us so much in terms of our federal funding. I call them our fairy godmother and fairy godfathers of federal funding because they have really literally brought home more than $7 billion in critical funding to our state. So today, we are celebrating this investment in public health for our students, for our teachers, for our staff, for our families, because literally they can be here at 6 in the morning all the way through to 6 at night, right? That's more time than you spend at home. So this is an important investment for all of our communities, but we have prioritized our most vulnerable communities because those are the communities that haven't had the funds to update HVAC systems. Some of our wealthier school districts across the state have done this years ago, but it's hard for challenged districts like this one in Waterbury to make these kinds of investments. So this is an incredible celebration of a significant amount of money, $450 million, to make investments like new boilers in heating and ventilation components, in air conditioning and ventilation. We still have schools in our state that don't have air conditioning. So yes, you know. So that's why this is so significant. It's an investment in the health of all of us, including our future. And I want to make one more other point that hasn't been made, and that is this is going to mean job creation in our state. Our building trades, our plumbers, our pipe fitters, our electricians, our laborers are going to be in schools across the state, making sure that these systems are updated. So it's an investment in public health, it's an investment in energy efficiency and sustainability. So thank you to all who have made this great day possible.
Thank you.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce Governor Ned Lamont, really who brought this program to fruition. It brings me back to about a year ago, maybe a little more, we were in Wethersfield announcing this program as a concept. And then we were in South Windsor announcing that it had been signed into law. And now we're here today announcing the actual awards, which are going to make a specific difference on lives here and across our state. So again, the governor, who has made such a difference throughout his tenure, certainly throughout the pandemic, a model for our nation, and certainly this program now a model for the nation as well. Governor.
All right.
Well, thanks, Michelle. And it's a pretty good gig going to Houston, actually. I wasn't the only one. I mean, there were thousands of folks from Connecticut were there. Thousands of folks who used to be in Connecticut were there. And after Saturday night, and you walk downtown Houston, sort of cavernous, and a lot of people wearing blue. If you saw somebody wearing blue, they go, "Yukon Huskies," and you just heard that resonating back and forth. It was, boy, those guys just did us so proud. And for a brief and shiny moment, everybody was talking about Connecticut, and I loved every second of it. And but now we're back, and back to what it means for government. And Neil, I just want to reiterate what Dick said. I love coming back to Waterbury with you. This is a city that gets it right because you've had great leadership for many, many years, thanks to Neil O'Leary. And so much of what we're doing here is so important. Neil and I were here, a lot of government's not always flashy. It's a lot of blocking and tackling. And I didn't realize basketball was blocking and tackling too. But there's, we've been here for lead pipes. We've been here for accessibility at the rail station. We've been here, Neil, for brownfield remediations. I mean, we're an older state. There's a lot of what you have to do to take care of people, upgrade what you got, and make sure this is a place where people want to be. And Waterbury is a place where people want to be. We have many, many new residents coming. Walsh has got an expanding student body. We want to make good for these kids. You hear about the big things we're trying to do at state government, working with Eric and Susan and I, what we want to do in terms of middle-class tax cuts to make this state more affordable for everybody so you can afford to be here. What we're trying to do in terms of more housing. Neil and I have been here to announce hundreds of new units of housing right here in downtown Waterbury, bring that back to life, speeding up the rail service on the Waterbury line. But a lot of what we do, you don't always see every day, and the difference it makes. And we found out, I think, during the dark days of COVID, I learned more than ever about the importance of clean air, breathable air that you have confidence in. I sort of took it for granted, Manisha. I just never focused on that until you saw that we were afflicted with a virus that was airborne. I found out from the teachers loud and clear and the parents, I got to make sure we're doing everything we can to make sure that you and your teachers you represent want to get back into the classroom and that parents feel confident and comfortable with their kids there. And we don't solve this overnight, but about $150 million a year, we're making a difference. And I'll tell you, as a governor, it's really good having a partner in Washington, D.C. It's not always the case. And that's Johanna Hayes, and that's Dick Blumenthal. You guys every day remember the state when you're down there in Washington, D.C., not just reflecting Connecticut values, which I think are so important, but also making the resources like this available via ARPA and the Infrastructure Act and IRA, things that are going to take a state that a lot of it's old. This place is, 60 years old? Isn't that what you said? This building, is that about right? Is it longer than that? More than that. Okay, older than that. I don't know, everything around the state's kind of old, even the governor. So we got to continue to make these investments to keep this state where it ought to be. And that's that's what this is all about. Look, clean air, healthy air. Dick said it so well. This has got to be a safety zone. Schools have got to be a place where kids know they can relax. Their parents know that their kids are safe. And we make sure that if we ever have one of these pandemics again, Manisha and I will be confident that you can be right here at Walsh School and know you can be here safely. That's why we're making these investments. And again, to the school board, thank you. You've been on the front line of this. You've been champions for this every day. We're glad to be able to be here and say we hear you. Thanks, everybody.
So that's the close of our presentation for today. Happy to take any questions from our press partners, media partners on topics relative to today, and then certainly off to the side on other topics related for our guests. Any questions about the subject matter for today? All right, we must have covered it all. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Yes.